Hello, welcome to our shop. Today we have a story for you. Our story begins with one of my customers deciding that he wanted to add a Telecaster to his arsenal of guitars. He already had a Strat and a PRS, and he decided he wanted a Tele. So he went shopping and found this custom built guitar for sale. Well, it was also built by a builder in the state. So he thought that he could do a good deed and support a local artisan. Well, like most good intentions, they usually come back to bite you. Seemed like a good idea, get a Tele, help out a homeboy. Win-win, right? Well, not so much. So I'm going to say two things here. One, for those of you that think my videos have not had enough detail in them, you're going to be sorry you said that, because today we're starting more detailed videos. The second thing is, I'm not doing this video to bust this guy's chops. Now, I researched it. He's supposed to have built several hundred guitars at this point, and I'm leaving it at that. That being said, let's get on with what the situation is here. We have a Telecaster with a walnut cap and back and poplar body. Looks pretty nice in the onset. We've got the Cool Kids Bear Trap back here. I will also mention I have covered up the logo to keep me out of litigation. So this is your basic look at the guitar. Flip it over and let's take a look at the back. We have what looks like a fresh out of the spray can satin finish. Oh, there's a hair. We've got DNA. Okay, anyway. So, let's look at what we've got here. First thing we notice, the strings aren't lined up on the neck. At that point, we also notice the chips around the neck pocket. So go up here and check the nut. Let's put a paper towel in here so you can see this. Okay, be a little easier to see. Let's look at the nut. I've already adjusted the neck to make sure it would work. The nut is 3 times as high as it should be on the bass side, 4 times as high as it should be on the treble side. Which brings us up to here. Let's look at our tuning machines. Let's take a close look at the tuning machines. Alright. If you notice, they're not seated on the headstock. Some of them are sticking off this headstock almost a 1/16 of an inch. Okay. We're not going to get into the whole pet peeve thing about the loose tuners. At this point, that's a moot point. Fretwork is horrible. He was complaining about dead spots here and there, all over the neck. The action height is actually not even at all. There's high and low strings. Some of them's half as high as they should be. Some of them's too high. But the fretwork is a big problem. Something else we've noticed here at this point how the rear of the neck overhang here has been modified. Okay. He also complained about the guitar being, quote, noisy as hell. Okay, well, one thing, the pickups are so low, if it was properly wired and all that, the signal to noise ratio would be really poor. Something else I noticed on this guy's site talking about guitars, he is very proud of using vintage wire. So I actually opened his guitar up and looked while the customer was here. There's not a piece of shielded wire or shielding anywhere in this guitar. Talking about electronics, take a look here. See how far off alignment his pickup is? It doesn't line up anywhere near with the strings. The good thing here is I've already checked. The one thing that is right is the bridge is centered properly with where the neck should be. If I pull this neck over and line it up, it actually lines up on the center line here with this, so that's good. The problem here is we're going to have to move this base plate over to line it up with the strings, which gets us to another thing. He said if you touched anything metal, it hummed. Well, with a string ground, anytime you touch anything metal, it should get quieter. So I checked into that. The only thing grounded here, his strings aren't grounded. The only thing grounded here is this plate, because it's grounded through the grounding plate on the bottom of this tele pickup. But it's not touching the bridge or studs, so the bridge isn't grounded. There's not a ground wire going to the Bigsby here. So the only time it gets quieter when you touch anything metal is when you touch this plate or the control plate. But if you touch the strings, it actually hums louder. So that's the high points of what's going on here. I mean, we've got a lot more to discuss, a lot more problems here, but we're going to address them pretty much one at a time while we're working on this guitar. So buckle up. We're going to get down and dirty here. We got a lot to do. The whole thing is, like I say, this guy's a decent customer. He's been coming in here for a while. We're going to try to bail him out here, because what the story actually is, when I first looked at his guitar, the first thing I said to him was, "Can you return it?" And he just shook his head. So to help him recoup the money that he's actually put in this, we're going to have to do a good bit of work. We're going to try to turn this into a proper functioning instrument. So here we go. So I cannot think of any better place to start than up here at the headstock. So let's address this tuning machine issue. Alright, well, what we have found here is they've drilled a constant diameter hole clear through the headstock, which, you know, I like to see a different size in the rear, usually 3/8, and then a smaller hole in the front, because you don't need the collar going all the way through the headstock. Yeah. But these fit very tight in these holes, and that doesn't allow them to seat on the headstock. So I'm going to run a reamer in there and see if I can open that up just enough to drop them down flat. I really don't want to drill through the whole headstock again. I'm going to see if I can just open up the rear of it enough to get it to seat. Alright, well, that has worked for the first one. 5 more to go. To show you what I've done, I basically just opened that hole up just a little bit with the reamer. Then I cleaned it with countersink here and actually did the screw hole as well, so it wouldn't chip around it. We're ready to bolt that one on. So let's get moving on here to the others. Well, there we go. We have all the tuners remounted, and they're all flush now. They seat like they're supposed to. What I also found out here was that some of the tuning machine mounting holes, the big 3/8" holes, were not drilled straight. So what I could actually do was when I was reaming the holes out, I could lean a little bit one way or the other to actually take the hole the direction I need to line it up. So we've got that all taken care of. That's probably one of the smallest things we're going to have to do. And that's how much time we've got in it so far. 17 minutes. So let's move on to our next problem. The next move we're going to make here in trying to straighten this out is dealing with the neck mounting issues. He also mentioned that when he tuned this guitar up to start with, there was a massive crack and the guitar detuned, so he felt the neck slide. And when I got looking, there's actually a pretty good gap here at the heel of the neck and the end of the neck pocket. So what's happening is the only thing holding the neck in place is actually the screws for the neck mounting. So what's happened, it's allowed it to slide rearward. That should butt up against something solid. You have to look into that. Also, this overhang that's been modified here was probably really unnecessary. Let's swap hands here. Because there's plenty of room here. The full fingerboard thickness could have been left out here on this overhang without a problem. So this did not need to be trimmed out like this. But we're going to get into a few other things here. We roll it over, show you something else I've found. We can take this feeler gauge and slide it in underneath there and bumping into the neck screw. Okay, we slide this feeler gauge in here. And come over here and slide it in. We've got a pretty good air gap here underneath the neck for whatever reason. So we need to check on that too. So, oops, wait, what we got here? I do not like the way these screws are seating in this neck plate. They're sticking up quite a bit. I may have to re-countersink those, or we'll check the size of the screw heads. We can't have that. Anyway, let's get this neck off and see what we've got underneath. Oh, children, look what we have found here. We have a walnut shim back here in the back of the neck pocket. And it's not even constant thickness. And this is actually thicker on one end than it is on the other. Of course, it's tapered this way as well. Something else I see here, we actually have a little ledge. You probably can't pick it up here really well. We actually have a little ledge right here that's not been routed out of the neck pocket. So we'll have to clean that up so the neck seats down flat. Okay. Okay, well, that took a whole 5 minutes. What I did was I used an X-Acto chisel blade and cut down through the side here to get that to where it was supposed to be, and then cleaned up the bottom of it with this way. Then finished cleaning up the entire pocket with one of my homemade sanding sticks. You change sandpaper. Anyway, so now we've got the floor of the neck pocket all level. See, they've had a little errant route over here for whatever reason. I also need to make a correction. Earlier I said that this body was made of a poplar core with a walnut top and back cap. I picked up that information from the website that has similar guitar. This one, however, like I say, I'm going to correct myself. This entire body is black walnut. So, carry on. I have just found something else here that is a problem. The neck screws actually thread into the body instead of passing through smoothly, so they can bind up. So we're going to enlarge those a little bit before I go up to the next size a bit, just so they'll pass through smooth without catching, because we don't want it to thread into this body and keep it from seating properly. Actually, we've had to go up 2 drill bit sizes, so this is the second one. You notice we've also countersunk around the holes to keep from chipping any finish. Let's get you caught up here. So I've enlarged the neck screw holes. I've made a slightly over 1/16 inch thick mahogany shim that I've glued here in the back of the pocket to keep the neck from sliding, so that's snug. I've also countersunk the holes here in the neck, and I've re-countersunk the neck plate holes here so that the screws actually fit more flush in it. So we've got this all back together. However, on the other hand, right hand actually, we have a very disappointing development. I have raised a blister and busted it while countersinking those neck mounting screw holes in the neck plate. That'll teach me to not take the extra half hour to drive across town to the home shop where the drill press is to do major stuff. Oh well. So I'll be slathering that with Neosporin and a Band-Aid and taking a big dose of Suck It Up. Guess I'll be left-handed for a couple days. We've got the neck on temporarily and have it shimmed up so that the strings are lined up on the neck properly. Between the shadows and stuff here, it's hard to actually get a good shot of it for you, but it's lined up. So we'll be spiraling around this guitar here a bit. We'll be bouncing around from point to point, taking care of things in what doesn't seem like a logical manner, but it actually is. So what I'm going to do now, once I have the strings lined up on the neck, I'm going to go back here and line up this rear pickup and get that out of the way. I also want to mention here that I took the bridge off, take the strings and all that off to work on the tuners. I also found the reason this bridge plate is suspended back here in air is they didn't use the 3 mounting screws here in the back side of the plate. They only have the 2 in the front. So when I move this over to line it up, I'm going to have to plug and re-drill these 2. I'm probably going to have to open up the hole here around the pickup just a little bit to get room to slide it over. But with a cup half full philosophy, I don't have to plug and re-drill these 3 holes. I just have to re-drill them, or drill them to start with. So There you go. See? Not all that bad. Okay. We're ready to move on to the next stage here. We've done some plotting and planning, and it looks like we're going to have to remove about this much material over here to be able to move the pickup sideways to get it where it's supposed to be. For that, we're going to be using a Dremel tool with a sanding drum on it. So, here we go. Well, you see here we have the strings lined up on the pole pieces of the pickup much better. So we've marked it, we're ready to drill those. So I'm going to drill those carefully and move on to the next step. Alright. Well, I was going to get out on my fancy bridge stud insert pulling tools till I found out I'm not going to need them because these are so loose they just pull out. Those should fit tighter than that. But anyway, what we're going to do is we have a ground wire here that was not necessary. He actually had it grounding to the bottom of this pickup plate here. But the pickup plate is actually grounded through the base plate of the pickup. So we really don't need this. But what we're going to do is repurpose it. So what I'm going to do is drill a hole through over here into this cavity, run this wire over, and ground the bridge through this stud insert. Alright? Now how am I going to do that? So I'm going to use this. That is a very long aircraft drill bit. Of course I don't need the length, but I need the angle. So of course I can't drill this while I'll record it for you, so you're going to have to guess. So you see we have our wire, we have our hole. We just run this up through here. Put our stud down in there. We're going to tap it in a minute. And we have our ground wire for the bridge. That's that problem solved. Well, the bridge is back on. We've got all of our screws in. We do not have anything sticking up in the air back here anymore. We have a grounded bridge. The only thing left there to do is put shielded cable on that pickup, but we're going to do that later. I think what I'm going to do at this point is move on to doing the fretwork. And while I've been working on this and noticing the alignment of everything, I'm thinking he's probably going to get a nut too, because the spacing on this nut's wrong. Sometime we'll get this guitar done. Okay, let's get you caught up here. We've got some more time in here. It's probably been an hour since I've been back because I've been working. So anyway, we have it on the neck jig. We have our frets all leveled. We're ready to start profiling them. I'm a little concerned about the lacquer finish on the fingerboard here. I'm well versed in dealing with vintage instruments, but I can see where this has had a few adhesion problems where the finish has been popping off of it before it came in the shop. So I'm going to try to be very careful with this. I'm going to start out using some drafting tape underneath my regular fretwork tape so it doesn't adhere as hard. I'm actually going to try to remove some of the adhesive from the drafting tape first. If I have any problems, I may have to move on to something else like taping paper down to it or something, because we don't want to pull any finish here. We've got enough problems to deal with. Like I said, they're all level and ready to go here, so let's start filing frets. Okay, for those of you that are detail oriented and want to see it and haven't checked out any of the other fretwork videos, I'm going to show you one fret, then I'm going to move on. There are plenty of fretwork videos on this channel. You can actually see more of how I do it. But I'm going to show you one. There's one. 21 more to go. Let's see how this works. Okay. That will probably work out fine for us. So, oh, and by the way, still bandaged. Okay. On to 21 more frets. All right. Well, we're back off the neck jig. We've got all of our frets finished here. They are perfectly level, nicely profiled, ends are taken care of, and buffed nicely. Next up, we're going to get the action taken care of on this thing. We're going to make it play like a guitar. The action right now is very high. I think I understand now why you had this big shim here underneath the back of the neck. Looks to me like I'm going to have to make an angled shim for this. If I was only using maybe 15 thousandths, I'd shim it with the plastic. But this is going to be pretty thick in the back, so I'm going to make an angled mahogany shim for it. We have our mahogany shim roughed out. What we have here is a piece of 1/8 inch thick mahogany. The first thing I did was put a piece of masking tape on the back side to kind of support this. It's actually going to become part of the shim because we're going to thin this down to basically nothing on this area, on this edge. We're going to have a major thickness back here. So we've already marked it for our neck screws. We're going to drill those next. Have them done because we don't want to try to drill that after we've been shaping and sanding here. And this is going to be a trial and error type thing because we can't really calculate how much shim we need. So let's get these holes drilled and get this ready to go. We have our shim mounted to a piece of corian here that I'm going to be using as a backup. We've mounted it with a couple of little strips of double-sided tape. We're going to be shooting for a rear thickness of just about 60 thousandths of an inch. And it's going to taper up to the front to nothing. So there's going to be some sanding going on here. After a liberal 60 grit sandpapering, we have 52 thousandths there, which I will go with. Nice and even. Taper down to nothing here. Hopefully this will get the job done. So let's stick this together and see what we have happening. Okay, so we'll show you what we've got here. We've got a tapered shim that is 52 thousandths thick back here. About 15 to 20 thousandths thick right here. And you see why we put the tape on so it doesn't chip. So I'm going to put a little black, probably a Sharpie, around the edges of this so it doesn't stick out like a sore thumb, and get this guitar together and see if this works. Hopefully I will not have to take this back apart again. And the neck will be on the guitar for the last time for the job. Alright. Well, so far that's working out. Our neck angle has been corrected and we've got that taken care of. Shim doesn't look too bad in the cavity. You can barely see a little bit of it there. So, our strings are lined up well in the neck now because of our shims, because of our lateral shim over here. We actually had to put two here. They're tapered. But we've got our strings lined up on the neck. We've got our bridge at a usable height here. We've got it all set radius wise. So our next move is the nut. And I've kind of come to the conclusion the nut is so high, I'm going to try to salvage it. I'm going to file these notches out and reset the widths here as it's supposed to be and recut it. Something else I noticed when we was talking about this though, if you look here, here's another issue. See if I can get it so you can't really see that well. Yeah, there you go. See, the strings come off the nut at an angle to the tuners, so the tuning machines aren't lined up properly with the center line of the neck. So that's not going to help him with his Bigsby any. But we will see what we can do. So, time for lunch. And also, I'm going to need a new Band-Aid. I keep sticking this one on. We're healing up from yesterday, but man, that's still a nasty blister we had there. So anyway, lunchtime. So I've finished up my lunch and I'm sitting here waiting for my hand to dry before I can bandage it up again. And I thought we'd just continue something here. Thought I'd show you this. See? That's what happened yesterday. So we're going to bandage that up. Reminds me of a funny story. Several years ago, I had to go in to have thumb surgery. If you can look here, there's a couple scars here underneath the base of my thumb. My thumb had locked up from doing fretwork because if you see a little dark spot there in my palm, just below my thumb, all my fret files and everything pressed right there and it crushed the tunnels. So I remember being in a doctor's office for my initial visit. Yeah, and he was looking at the top of my hand, he looked at the bottom of my hand, he'd look up at me, and he rolled my hand back over, and he looked at me, and he said, "How old are you?" And I said, "Well, a couple months I'll be 60. He says, "Your hand is 80. Yeah, so they get a lot of use. So we're going to bandage this little guy up and get back to work. Just thought I'd share that with you. Oh yeah, that looks a lot better. Let's get this tuned up. Oh yeah, that's what it ought to be. We were able to salvage that nut. It's a plastic nut, but you know what? It took us a whole, okay, let's see, 15 minutes maybe to recut and file that nut and get it taken care of, as opposed to an hour to make a bone nut for it. And our strings are lined up good now. We've got exactly the width we want here. Yep, perfect. Okay, which makes it look a whole lot more aligned down through here. Before, the way it was, it actually looked like the neck was actually carved crooked, which it really wasn't. It was so far over, it was actually setting over probably about, it was a 30 seconds off. It's probably over that much. So that's how much we moved it back over. So, okay. There. Let's get on to a rough setup on this. Then we're going to fix the electronics. Then we're going to restring it with the proper size strings he wants to use and do a setup on it. We're getting there. Well, we've got the action rough set where we want it. Just getting started here at the setup thing. Make sure everything falls in line. I say we're just roughing in the setup here. Everything was going well until we found out another problem. We can't get our rear pickup high enough. So hopefully when I'm into this electronics thing here, I can figure out what's going on there. Big surprise, right? Okay. Oh, Matt, you're going to owe me, buddy. So anyway, let's carry on.